Ghost Cult Magazine is honored to welcome in Doug Aldrich of the Dead Daisies and a jillion other bands. How are you doing, Doug?
Doing good. Well, doing very well considering, Keith. Thanks, bro. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here as well, man. Big fan and a super big fan of the new Dead Daisies album, Holy Ground, just out recently. Fantastic
Awesome.
record, wonderful addition of Glenn. So many things to unpack, but obviously, we were just talking about this prior to beginning here. Obviously, it is still an insane time in the world. I sincerely hope your family, you, everyone you love, the band, all their respective peoples, your crew, anyone you're associated with. I hope everybody is in one piece and they're whole. You haven't lost anyone. I don't want to ever lose the human element of these things because above all, the
Yeah.
music is real life.
You know, it's been like a juggling act with everything. With first being home this much, I've been doing a lot of parenting stuff. Kids, school, schooling from home in California, which is rough on my son. But and then my daughter has a preschool, but they're only a couple hours a day. But then I'm juggling between that and doing promo for the album. Really, and then fitting in some practice time. But I wanted to say we're really grateful for the support and everything that we've been getting for Holy Ground. It's been um, extraordinary, really cool.
Right on,
And
right
by the
on.
way, I very rarely use extraordinary, so I did that for you, bro. That's a David
It's
Coverdale word. I'm
it.
that's
It
out of
sounds
my
like a David Coverdaleism. He's marvelous. I love him. Yeah, man. It is. I appreciate that extra word there. I'm a big dollar word guy. I'm a $10 word guy. Actually, is how I got to be a music journalist after my band days. But all the praise and respect due on Holy Ground, man. It is marvelous. All bangers from start to finish. Glenn is amazing. Maybe one of my favorite things he has ever been on, and that says a lot. I have followed his whole career.
yeah.
And obviously, the band, you've been working on this record for a few years. No one could predict the pandemic, but what a sensational record. What was it like? Kind of, obviously, you've been in the band a while now. So, obviously, this is one of
Yeah,
your
it,
main
it was
projects.
it was like a really a fresh start. We made some personnel changes, as you know, and it's all amicable. This is a band that's been built to have people come and contribute and then go off and do their own thing or do their own thing at the same time, which has happened. So we had the opportunity to get Glenn Hughes to join in, and I called him and he said, "Man," I go, "Is this for real?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's time for you and I to make some music, and we'll do it with the Dead Daisies, and this is great." And I was immediately got super inspired to write ideas to present to Glenn. Glenn had a bunch of songs already planned that he wanted to bring in, and David and I got busy on stuff, and we were lucky to get this record recorded before the pandemic, and we were really lucky because it wouldn't have been the same record, but we had to sit on it. But I'm not going to complain. We sat on it for this whole year, last whole year, and then it's just now out. I can't complain. I've been home with the family, and there's been so many people that have been, like you mentioned, have been so drastically hurt by this pandemic. So I'm glad that this record's out. Maybe it can help some people feel a little better, forget their trouble for a minute, and get inspired, get some energy off the record.
Right on, right on. So, what's that writing process like in a band with a bunch of great writers? Do you guys bring in your own songs? Like you said, you wrote together a little bit with Glenn. How does that work, especially when you guys might be spread out a little bit?
Yeah, well, Glenn and I were both in LA, so that was easy. Before the pandemic hit, sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, Glenn and I are in LA, but before the pandemic hit, we were doing some demos at his place. I had, like I said, written some things with Glenn in mind that I thought Glenn would like. He's a heavy groove guy. He wants that heavy groove, not to say funk, but hard rock heavy groove. And so there were things that I presented him, and then he would finish them, melodically with lyrics and melodies and stuff. And then he brought in things that he was gracious enough to let us put our stamp on them and make some adjustments here and there. So basically, with this lineup, we brought ideas that were more complete together, and it just seemed to work good. once we got together, we all, like I said, we all put our stamp on everything, and we arranged everything with Ben Gross, the producer. Who Ben did an amazing job. And one of the things that helped us was, anytime you make a change and you bring in someone, especially somebody as he's very as a sensitive person, very spiritual person, which Glenn is. It takes time to gel. Me and Glenn have known each other, but we took time to gel, and we had the opportunity to do all this in the south of France at a studio called La Fabrique, and it was like an old fabric mill that they turned into it's like it's like a chateau. It's like there's bedrooms all over the place. There's a kitchen on site. So we basically lived there and wake up, go down and have breakfast together, and then just go jam all day long. We could stay really focused. And Ben made that happen. Glenn made it happen. Everybody got, comfortable with each other, and here we are. It's finally out.
That's an amazing story. It's kind of like how they used to do it in the old days: Stones, Beatles, Zeppelin, Purple. They used to just Sabbath, go to a house, live together. I think there's something to be said for that
I
communal
do too.
experience that pours into the songs.
You can hear it on the record. You can hear that we were definitely in a zone that we covered. It was good because we covered some different ground with regard to musicality. Like, we went deeper than we have before with songs like Far Away, and we went heavier with songs like My Fate. We went groovier with songs like Bustle and Flow, and Like No Other, Baseline. And then yeah, so it's just, but the lyrics all tie it together. Glenn's a very he writes songs of, he would say it's like songs of humanity, or songs about humanity and about human existence, experiences, stuff like that. And so, but what's cool is, Keith, is he leaves a lot of room for interpretation for the listener. So a song like Holy Ground, you can make it what you want it to be about. What's holy to you.
Right on, and it is a pristine sounding record. I'm glad you brought up Ben and his contribution, because I think anytime you have, I think it's kind of like the punch is missing a little bit from modern records as a listener and a fan and a critic. Sometimes I feel like, what's lacking from 30, 40 years ago, which is right when you came in. Not to age us both, but it's really
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you've come in that time. I feel like your 70s and 80s records had kind of the hard rock, classic rock punch. And although I love modern production and I love sort of what the convenience of technology, some records lack the punch. This one doesn't. So sometimes
That's good.
to give the drums and the bass the boost they need, sometimes guitars get thinner, and not on this record, man. And I obviously, you're a guitarist. Dave is a guitarist. So you need to have that crunch. You need to have it, ring when it needs to, sing when it needs to. I love the sound of the guitars on this record.
Thank you, man. I mean, that's really Ben. I mean, I've played my same Les Paul, not this one, there's another one back here, but I use it for everything really right now. And it's that's the main guitar on the record. And David, as you said, he's a very simplistic guitarist, but he maintains the Daisy sound with these big, he really digs in. That doesn't sound that heavy there, but anyway, he's got an attack that's really cool, and against me, it it seems to work out well. So, but what I was going to say was, is Ben Gross really kind of was in charge of everything. I mean, I just played. I played what I thought was good, and we get a sound that we thought was close. But he definitely tweaks stuff, and he's really like, was really good with the compression on the guitar. Like, you can put a compressor on a guitar and really make it kind of punch. And he would. You don't want to go too far, because then you can hear it. You can hear it kind of sucking in and out. But he'd had this DBX 165 compressor that he put on my guitar, and every time I'd check, make sure it was on the guitar when I was cutting tracks, because I was like, gotta have can you just give it a little taste more? He's like, nope, it's perfect. I'm like, okay. But it's good because that you say it's a punchy record, because I feel the same. Those records in the 70s and 80s, especially the early 80s, like Back in Black and stuff, you can crank that record in your car and it still sounds, and it's big. It's maybe not as loud as some records nowadays, but it still sounds, it's, you can crank it. So that's good. Some records, if you go too hot with it, it'll start to mush up your system a little bit.
Yeah,
No
man.
mushing, no
No
mushing
mush.
about.
That should be on a sticker. No mush, everybody. No mushing. Yeah, man. Another thing I wanted to talk about is your leads. Of course, always great. Are you a guy that works out a lot of your stuff in advance, or is it something maybe you don't? You kind of like do
You can
spontaneously.
you can kind of hear what I did. There was some stuff that's just very spontaneous. That was like Holy Ground, for example, is us was one where I was in there. I wasn't really. It's a short little solo, and it's just about attitude. So I just kind of came in and just kind of threw. I started off doing some stuff that was a little more melodic, and I asked Ben, "What do you think?" He's like, "Yeah, I like the first part's cool," and then I was like, "All right, let me keep that. I'll try something else." And I tried something. He goes, "Well, the end was good, but I don't know." And I go play another one. He'd be like, "Not really feeling it yet," And I'm like, "Dude, I want it to start like this, and I want it to have some melody here, and I want it to end with some fire at the end." And he's like, "Doug, why not just do that then? Stop talking about it." And I'm like, "All right." So then I fired one off. I was kind of a little bit pissed off. I'm like, "Come on, let's get this thing." And I fired one off, and I go, "Well, that was crap." And he's like, "No, no, no, that was really good. Listen back." And I was like, "Listen, the end is all screwed up." And he said, "Just fix it. Just punch it in." And so Holy Ground was a very spontaneous one. Something like Come Alive, I had a melody that was set for that. It was just like a, a simple melody, and that seemed, I had to make sure it worked with the vocal. Once Glenn got his vocal on there, and fortunately it still worked. But a lot of times, you just go off, you listen to the track from the top, and you listen to the vocal, and it'll kind of dictate how it's going to be. Sometimes you can work it out. Other times you got to just go for it.
I like the go for it. Sometimes, yeah. Come Alive is probably my favorite track on the record, along with Bustle and a few others. Is there a
Cool.
particular one that you're very fond of?
Um, I like Chosen and Justified just because it's a simple track. Glenn really, it's just pretty easy to digest. It's not the heaviest track, and it's not the lightest track. It's kind of right in the middle, but it's got a good vibe to it. And My Fate, I like. It's super heavy, but Glenn did. There's some stuff that Glenn does on this record that's very different. He brought that track in, and it's probably the heaviest track on the record, and it also has got a vocal range that's much lower than what he's known for, which is really cool. And the chorus kicks in, and it's just groovy, feels really very easy to digest as well. And then Like No Other was fun. That was one of the ones I brought in with Glenn in mind. And keep in mind too, when I say bring in for him in mind, it's like I'll bring in musical ideas all day long, and if the singer likes it and he's getting off on it, then we'll work on it. If he doesn't get off on it, I'm not going to force anything, because there's no point. Especially with Glenn, you really got to. He's got to feel it to want to deliver a melody and a lyric on it. But he played great. He put a bass solo on that track that was like it was like a complete take during tracking, when same track that we used of drums, we used that bass with his solo on it.
Nice. No one should ever count out Glenn Hughes in his whole life, man. This guy is magical. He literally turned in one of the best performances of his entire career on this album. All
Yeah,
across the board.
he shines, and especially he shines all the way around, from songwriting and singing and melodies and lyrics. But his bass playing is ferocious. He plays like he's a lead bass player. And one of the cool things during the lockdown period last year was we were trying to get material out to our fan base, to our friends, and basically like the family that we have gotten over the years, and Glenn as well. And we would do like these playthroughs where it would be Glenn playing through a song like Bustle and Flow or something, and where Unspoken was really cool. You could see this stuff on YouTube, and I basically took the got the tracks from Ben, and I removed the bass, the original bass, and then I'd play it back for Glenn over these speakers, and then record his new, like him playing live. And every take was different. He would just go for it, and they were all great. But Glenn would be like, that one, I'm like, dude, why'd you stop? That was killer, man. Don't stop. I'm gonna record everything. So he'd get one that he was happy with, and it would be, we'd use that video chunk, and then I would just take that bass and kind of turn it up in the mix, so it was really on top of the mix, and it was really cool to hear his bass like that.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. Tone, playing, everything. I imagine a guy like you, pandemic or not, and obviously you talked about some of the challenges of home life, although I'm sure it's great to also be home and have that extra time right now. I'm sure when things open up again, we're all going to be like up to here busy, which is a great thing. When I wish for it every day. I imagine you're a guy, you play guitar every day. You could potentially write a song every time the guitar is in your hands, right?
I could. Sometimes it comes out just without thinking about it. Sometimes I sit down in the morning when I'm fresh and actually start to, just brainstorm things. A lot of times I'll brainstorm something before I'll have it. Like, for example, like no other, I just thought of that groove for that Glenn would like that, and then just found I put that down, and then I just was thinking, well, David could play something around that, like some passing chords, and there it was. It started like that. It was very simple, not much to it, but it works. And during the verse, Glenn, I said, let's have the bass lay out, and then when the chorus kicks in, the bass kicks in, and it's like wallop. So that was like a kind of brainstorm without even knowing what key the song was going to be in yet. But I, I mean, I think if you were looking at like complete songwriters, I'm probably not as complete as other people, because I basically focus on the music. I'll have melody ideas once in a while. I might have a lyric idea that I would give to somebody, and then, but any melody ideas I give, I usually, when I give it to somebody gingerly, it comes back 10 times better the way they do it. So
Right. Well, I always say there's a thing in music where like you hear a song in your head. I used to write songs. You hear something in your head and then you give it to someone else and they're going to interpret it the way they hear it with their ears and their sensibilities and all their history like you would do with yours when someone
yeah,
says, "Hey, Doug, play on my song." So it's a really cool given. I think that's like one of the beauties of being in a band is that if you have somebody you have that rapport with, there's that give and take creatively that's really special.
yeah, man. So we were very lucky to be focused, holed up in France. We got the record done, and we had to blow off all touring. We still have. We've just moved dates for Europe till next year that we're supposed to be in. Um, we're supposed to be in Europe right now, but we do have some stuff still from the summer on through to Christmas. Who knows? We'll see what happens if we're lucky and things start to, like, in the U.S. As you know, things are going better. In California, they're going better, but we're still a ways away. We need more vaccines and more people recovering healthy and people getting back to work. That's another thing, man. It's like been brutal for people. So my heart goes out to everybody who's gone through this. One day, I bet you we'll look back on this and it'll just be like, you know, a kind of the silver lining is that we all learned something and learned a lot. Even if you lost a loved one or lost, you know, a job or whatever, you look back and go, I learned something from it, and won't let that happen again. Hopefully.
Right on. I like the Zen PMA there by Doug. I like it, man. Um, of course, we got to all find that center in ourselves and get through this together, individually and together. I want to give you back your day in a few minutes, but of course, I wanted to mention that this week is very special. Also, you have two re-releases coming out this week from your time in Dio. The
Oh
two
yeah.
live albums are coming out on Friday, and these deluxe remastered vinyls and special supercalifragilistic versions. And you were in the band. I know people refer to it as kind of a late era Dio before he went back to heaven and hell, but of course he was still crushing it there. Those live albums are awesome, some of my favorite live albums ever. And you were in
Yeah.
a very pivotal time for the band. So I know it's going almost 20 years ago when you first joined, but I wanted to ask about if you had any reminiscences about those albums or playing live at that time with Ronnie.
We in 2002 we recorded it's like the third to last show of the tour. It was Friday the 13th in December of 2002 in New York, and we had a day off beforehand, and so I wanted to really work on, you know, all the ins and outs of the set and make sure the guitar solo built the right way. You know, it's like these guys like Ronnie, they want you to do a guitar solo because he wants a minute to relax and gain his, you know, maybe go have a leak. I don't know, have a beer or something, just relax and get his head back, then finish out the show like really strong. So I had to find a way to build a solo that was going to give him some time, and also it was not going to be like, you know, where the audience is going to want to go take a piss. So um, that I spent the whole day off doing that, and then we got to the gig, and I never forget, like the lights on we were used to the lights on the show being pretty dark the whole tour, and that show, because it was a video, it was my first time video. The lighting director, all of a sudden we get on stage and it's like, bam, like it was lit up like a Christmas tree. I was like, this isn't evil anymore. This is not Dio, you know. But we got through the show, and it turned out it looked good, you know. It turned out to be a good show, and it was a great audience that night. And then it was about 3 or 4 years later, I had been in Whitesnake, and Whitesnake had also done a DVD in London at the Hammersmith Odeon, which is a famous spot for Whitesnake to play, and that was awesome. But then we were off tour in 2005 for a little bit, and Ronnie asked me to come out, and Craig had hurt his hand, and he said come out and do some dates in Europe and the UK. And all of a sudden that there was cameras around. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, oh, we're doing a video. I'm like, ah. So I was like, I had to really bone up and get my parts together and relearn the solos. I wasn't just filling in. I mean, this was going to be documented. So instead I had to go back and listen to what I had done before with certain things to pay respect to Vivian's parts or Richie Blackmore's parts. And that day of that show, it was recorded in London at Astoria Theater, which is gone now. But Ronnie had a friend of his wanted to drive us to the gig, and he and Ronnie were talking. It was raining out, and the guy ended up getting lost. He goes, Ronnie's like, man, this is killing it. I mean, the show's going to start pretty soon. We got to get there. And he's like, Ronnie, I've got to been meaning to tell you for a minute, you know, we didn't get sidetracked, but I've been meaning to tell you, I'm lost. I don't know. And this is kind of prior to GPS and all that stuff. So it was like, wait, where are we? And it's looking out this car, and it's rain. You can't see anything really. But we got there, and the video went off good, and Ronnie was great. And one of the scariest parts of that show, I was like, if I got through this point, I would be okay. It was the solo for Gates of Babylon by Rainbow. That solo was one of my favorites, and I really wanted to try and get it close and, you know, not try to put my style into it. I figured that would naturally happen, but I just trying to get it close. And I felt like I hadn't gotten it. That's the best I probably played it on those dates, was during that night. I really focused hard on that. And once it was done, I was just like, yes, you know, and then I could, you know, relax for the second half of the show.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Congratulations on these re-releases. Congratulations on Holy Ground from Dead Daisies, man. I am so pleased for you guys. It's a tremendous.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll get another one sooner. I know there's going to be another new dynamic with Tommy coming in on drums, but
we're very excited about Tommy. Tommy's the heaviest drummer in the world right now. I don't think there's anybody. And the fact that he's been in Sabbath and Glenn's been in Sabbath, it's going to be super heavy. It's going to be great, man. Tommy's a brilliant drummer.
He is, man. Well, you're brilliant yourself, Doug, man. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing your story.
Keith.
Yeah, all the best to you, man. Please be safe and take care. And hopefully we'll get through this soon and get Dead Daisies back on stage. That's what I really want to see.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, bro. I'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.